Let's talk about the Memorandum of Understanding that was released by the White House earlier today. It has 14 points listed out, and already over the course of the entire day, there has just been misinformation and disinformation spewed about what each of these points mean. So we're going to go over each one of them. Now, TikTok is having some technical difficulties, and there's no green screen option, and so I will be reading these from my laptop. I have the points summarized, and we can go into detail if need be, but the first point is as follows. Immediate and permanent end to military operations between the United States, Iran, and their allies, including in Lebanon. And at the end of this paragraph, it talks about the finalization of the deal that will cease the war on all fronts, to include Lebanon. And so, from this one point alone, Israel is not a signatory, is not agreed to this. So already the deal may never occur simply because of this one point. Now, I will not be going in order. I want to skip to the most important point, which I think is number 6, where everybody is talking about the $300 billion. And so point 6 reads as follows. The United States of America undertakes with regional partners to develop a definitive, mutually agreed plan with at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The mechanism for the implementation of this plan will be finalized as part of the final deal within 60 days. All required licenses, waivers, and permissions needed for the relevant financial transactions will be granted by the United States. And basically, in a nutshell, and this has already been talked about numerous times by President Trump and the administration, is that this will be a fund that the United States has the decision-making authority over on the disbursement of the money. And it has been stated numerous times that the money will be contributed by outside sources like their neighbors, like Saudi Arabia and Oman, the Gulf countries, right? So no taxpayer dollars will be going into this fund, and the Gulf countries can contribute to it up to or not up to, but a $300 billion fund. And so the most important points about all of this is that the U.S. decides when the payouts go and for what. Now, I think number 8 is probably the second most important point, given the fact that it talks about what is going to happen with the nuclear material and their nuclear program. And there's a ton of people out there already saying that it doesn't say anything about that. And it's right there in point number 8. So I don't know why people don't know that unless they're getting just their news from the media, not looking into it any further. But it reads as follows. The IRGC reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran have agreed to resolve the disposition of stockpiled enrichment material pursuant to a mechanism that will be mutually agreed upon in accordance with the schedule mentioned in paragraph 7. So we'll have to go back to paragraph 7. With the minimum methodology to be downblended on site under the supervision of the IAEA. So at minimum, out of anything of all that, the buried nuclear material will be downblended, basically destroyed, under the supervision of the IAEA. So that part is at minimum must happen. The two parties also agreed to discuss the issue of enrichment and other mutually agreed matters related to the IRGC's nuclear needs based on a satisfactory framework being agreed upon in the final deal. And so what that one is talking about is what part of the nuclear enrichment program can they keep. And while not in these 14 points, it's been talked about that they will not be able to actually enrich their uranium, that somebody else will have to do it, a third party. So somebody like Russia, because Russia kind of already does that in their country. For those of you who don't know, Russia has a nuclear power plant in Iran, has had it there for many years, and they would have to get their enrichment under the supervision of Russia. They wouldn't be able to do it themselves, which they have been able to do it themselves since at least, I think it was 2004 or 2006 when they first achieved, I believe, 3% enrichment, and then fast forward to 2010 when they reached 20% enrichment. So that ability to enrich their own uranium, I believe, is going to be off the table in the new deal. Moving forward to the rest of the paragraph. The final deal will confirm the provisions of this paragraph. The United States of America and the IRGC acknowledge the critical importance of the nuclear issue above mentioned and express their intention to immediately address these issues in the negotiations in order to achieve mutual agreement on them. And so they're going to talk about it immediately after signing, which is taking place on June 19th. Now, paragraph number 7 is probably the most legally sticky point that will probably derail this entire process after the MOU is signed. and it reads as follows. The United States of America undertakes to terminate all types of sanctions against the IRGC, including the United Nations Security Council resolutions, the IAEA Board of Governors resolutions, and all unilateral U.S. sanctions, primary and secondary, in an agreed-upon schedule as part of the final deal. The Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America acknowledge the critical importance of the sanctions termination issue above mentioned and express their intentions to immediately address these issues in the negotiations in order to achieve mutual agreement on them. And so basically what that says is that the United States will begin the endeavor of terminating all sanctions that have ever been levied on Iran and the IRGC. And that is legally probably impossible because many of the sanctions were codified into law by Congress, and the president, while does have numerous powers to revoke sanctions, especially given by the executive branch and other executive orders that were passed down by previous presidents. And there are some provisions in law that allow him to manipulate the sanctions. He can't get rid of them wholesale, to include any that were delivered by the United Nations. But this paragraph, the legal language is what's important. It says that the United States will begin the process. Now the issue with the legal language is it talks about an agreed upon schedule. I think that part is the most the one that will derail it the most, because the IRGC will have to accept a schedule that's going to go on into many years from now, because there's no way that Trump's administration can get this done at all. Really, it'll take a long time, way beyond the next couple of years. So this paragraph alone may derail the entire process. Now, I'm actually running out of time, as I'm only allowed to make 10-minute long TikToks. Some people make them longer, but for some reason, I'm only allowed to do 10 minutes. So I'm going to summarize some of these. So paragraph 11, for example, talks about that the United States of America undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of the IRGC upon the implementation of the MOU. The United States of America and the IRGC will mutually agree on the procedures related to the release of these funds during the negotiations. And I think that last line is what's most important that people just overlook, because if you just read this on its face, you would think that we are just releasing the frozen sanctions and funds that have been implemented since the start of the war, and that it's just here's free money. And that's not the case, or at least that doesn't have to be the case. That last line clearly says that both sides have to agree to the procedures related to that release. And that line right there is what the Trump and the administration keep talking about with regards to it's a performance-based approach. And so, again, that could also derail this, because the IRGC could see this totally differently. Maybe something's lost in translation. I don't know. We'll find out. Other key takeaways worth mentioning is that after the signing of the MOU, they will have 60 days to finalize a complete deal that will then be ratified by the United Nations Security Council. But they do have an option, if mutually agreed upon, to extend this after the 60 days to an indeterminate amount of time. Immediately after signing the MOU, the naval blockade will cease, and so will the IRGC's attempts to block the strait in order to return the strait back to pre-war levels in, I believe, the first 30 days, or at least up to those period of 30 to then 60 days. Paragraph 5 talks about demining the strait and demilitarizing, and that the U.S. will pull back to its traditional position prior to the war, and that the Gulf countries, to include Iran, will get together and discuss the future of the strait, how they will manage it, but they will manage it in accordance with international law. So again, no tolls. They explicitly state no tolls for the first 60 days, but again, they said they will abide by applicable international law. So again, pretty much returning to a normal state pre-war. There are still so many unanswered questions, because this is just a memorandum of understanding, and all the language that people are looking for, all the details simply just aren't there yet, and they will be over the next 30 to 60 days if we can even get that far. I also do want to address real quick how everybody says, well, so what did we do this for? We did this for the current state of affairs, which is a significantly reduced IRGC and a compliant IRGC. They will not be able to do anything they will not be able to receive any of the money without action first. It's not like the JCPOA, because the JCPOA was just a bribe. It fueled the terror networks, and it fueled their influence and their position within the Middle East, causing all this chaos in the first first place. That's what the JCPOA did. So this is marketably different. You have to do something to get your money and to be normalized in society again. Normalized into the global society as much as the IRGC can be in any case. But these are all just words. Very little action has taken place. So we won't see that action take place for many, many weeks and months if we even get that far. The only action that's taken place so far is the Strait of Hormuz has started to flow ships again, and there's been some waivers on sanctions relief. That's about the gist of it. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have a good day.